First question, how many votes does it take to confirm a Supreme Court justice?
I have no idea.
How many votes does it take to impeach a president?
I don't know.
67? Or is it 60? 51.
Figuring out how many votes are needed to get something done in Congress can be confusing.
There's a lot to follow in Congress. There's the people, there's the policy, and then there's also the procedure.
This is Bloomberg government's Loren Duggan. It's his job to know the procedural rules on Capitol Hill. We asked Loren to explain how many votes it takes to get stuff done in Washington. But first, how did we get here? Did the framers really intend to design a system more convoluted than a David Lynch film? Some of the rules of Congress are specifically spelled out in the Constitution. But
there's also that important clause that says that each house shall determine its own rules. And so you have two institutions that have been built up in very different ways with different rules and norms that kind of dictate what they do.
Let's start with the House, the most straightforward of the two chambers.
The House has 435 members. It takes 218 of those to pass most legislation, elect a speaker, and even impeach a president and set up a trial over in the Senate. Not everything can pass with a simple majority. There are some things in the House that require a 2/3 vote under the Constitution. So the most common thing that takes 2/3 is a veto override when the president refuses to sign legislation, sends it back to Congress. That happens fairly frequently.
Proceeding to the veto message on the NDAA.
Vote to override the president's veto.
I urge my colleagues to override the president's veto.
Then there's amending the Constitution, which takes 2/3 of each house. That's pretty rare. Finally, there's this process called suspension of the rules that the House uses pretty frequently, but it's sort of wonky.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules.
Will the House suspend the rules?
I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 5599.
So this is the House saying we are going to require a 2/3 majority for this bill, but they usually save it for things that are non-controversial. Things like renaming post offices or reauthorizing programs that have wide support.
Which takes us to the Senate, whose rules are a bit more convoluted.
Moving over to the Senate, it's a very different institution. It has 100 members, and each individual senator has much more power and authority over the process than the House.
Let's start with your bread and butter legislation, the stuff that becomes laws. You know, this guy.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
Many people are surprised to find out that a lot of legislation only takes a simple majority to pass. If there are only 50 of one side and 50 of the other, the vice president would break the tie. But getting to that passage vote can be very complicated and require more support than it does to actually pass the piece of legislation.
Will the senator yield? No, sir, I will not yield.
In most cases, there's unlimited debate in the Senate, but there's rules built up to allow the Senate to cut off that debate called cloture. Cloture takes 60 votes, or 3/5 of the Senate, when it's fully constituted. So it theoretically takes a simple majority to pass a bill in the Senate. You really do need 60 to get over the hurdles procedurally to get to that final vote. So that's why 60 is kind of the gold standard for figuring out what you need to pass a bill.
But there is a mushroom cloud-sized exception.
Because the filibuster is a product of the Senate rules, the Senate can change the filibuster at any time by amending its rules to change how it operates. Changing the rules through the normal procedure would take a 2/3 vote, 67 senators if they all voted, and would require bipartisanship and consensus. However, in more recent times, we've seen them use something called the nuclear option to change Senate rules, or at least procedures, with a simple majority. It allows the majority to change the rules in a way that's going to be, by definition, partisan, without broad support, and tends to be permanent, and it rarely reverts back. So with the changes made through the nuclear option, it only takes a simple majority to cut off debate for cabinet nominations, other executive slots, and judicial nominations, including the Supreme Court.
There is another exception to the 60-vote threshold.
Budget process known as reconciliation.
The reconciliation.
That larger reconciliation package.
One of the biggest exceptions to the 60-vote threshold is the budget reconciliation process. The process allows Congress, with simple majority, to pass spending and revenue changes that can have pretty wide-ranging effects on the federal government. If somebody can master it and get their provisions in there, they can get something through without having to get those 60 votes in the Senate. Finally, as with the House, the Senate has a few things that take a 2/3 majority: amending the Constitution, throwing out one of its members, and overriding the president's veto. It also considers treaties that are signed by the administration, and it takes a 2/3 vote to convict and remove the president.
There you have it. The next time someone asks you this,
How many votes does it take to overcome a filibuster?
I honestly have no idea.
just show them this video.